Hello and you're very welcome to today's video. In this video what we're going to learn about is we're going to learn the reasons for globalization, the positive and negative effects of globalization, the positive and negative effects of globalization on the consumer as well. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to think about what are the reasons for globalization. Pause the video now and have a think about that and jot down your ideas. Press play when you're ready to go on. So, some of the reasons for globalization. The improvements in technology. The internet has allowed people to communicate with people all over the world and has also made business so much easier around the world as well. You can now email people on the other side of the world, say in Australia or China, and they can receive the message instantly, as opposed to having to send a letter, which would take an awful long time. Consumer demands. Consumers with higher income may want goods from other countries where there is a good reputation. So say, for example, someone might want to get themselves some Belgian chocolate, say, for example, because Belgian chocolate has a reputation as being of a really high standard or good quality. Or Swiss watches would be another example of something that's considered to be really good quality and be a better made product than something that's made at home here in Ireland. Economies of scale. That's a very fancy term. That basically means that the more you produce of something, the cheaper production comes as the production becomes even, as the costs are spread over more items. So if you think about it, there's two levels. One, there's the idea of bulk buying. So the more you buy of something, the cheaper a price you're going to get of it. Think about it if you say, for example, if you buy a can of Coke in the shop, or if you buy, say, for example, a packet of 6 cans of Coke. The price per can is cheaper than if you buy the 6-pack than if you buy an individual can. The other thing as well, if you make more goods, the cost of things, say for example like rent, which is going to be the same if you produce 1 good or 10 goods in your factory, the cost of the rent is spread over more items. Another reason is freedom of trade. So there's organisations which we're going to learn more about in the future, like the World Trade Organization, the WTO, and the EU, the European Union. They promote free trade between the countries. What I mean by free trade is that countries can trade, buy and sell goods to each other without having to pay any taxes or very low taxes. These taxes are called tariffs. Tariffs are a tax on goods being imported and exported, being traded with different countries. Labour. So what I mean by labour is basically the workforce, okay, people that are working in the factory or in the business. And it's the availability of the labour of the workers and the skills of the workers. So in countries like China and India, they have very low labour costs. So the cost of employing someone in those countries is quite low. So therefore it's cheaper to make the goods in those countries. Transport is another factor. There's now faster methods of transport between countries, and it's cheaper to transport the goods as well. Why is it cheaper? Because they're using bigger ships, which means, it's cheaper for them to send goods all around the world. This makes it much easier for us to buy goods from different places around the world. So, now I want you to think about, what are the positive and negative effects of globalization? Pause the video, have a think about it, jot your ideas, and when you're ready, press play to move on. So, some of the positives and negatives of globalization. We're going to look at it from two perspectives, the perspective of profit and the perspective of planet. Well, if you're a business, you're able to get more competitive prices. What I mean by more competitive prices is basically cheaper prices because you've got more options to be able to buy stuff, and also some stuff abroad may be cheaper than made here in Ireland. Companies also have access to more markets. When more markets is more customers. So consumers are able to companies are able to sell their goods to people all over the world and not just in their home country. The negative, so, is that it may hinder the progress of developing countries. What I mean by that is that if they're stuck in a low-wage economy, they may not be able to develop as they're forced to stay paying low wages in order to be competitive. Small companies aren't able to compete. So if you set up a small company here in Ireland, it's very difficult to compete with, say, for example, a large factory in China to be able to produce the goods cheaper than them. In terms of the planet and the environment, well, for the planet then you get, or from a personal point of view, it's an improved standard of living. In other words, you're able to get more and nicer goods and services than you would have had before. Also, there's the opportunity of sharing research across the different countries. So different ideas and different things that people study in universities and colleges and in companies as well, and say, for example, the pharmaceutical or the medical sector, they're able to share these ideas across different countries. And one idea can often lead to another idea or a better idea. The negatives, though, is that it can cause environmental damage. By sending planes, trains and ships all around the world delivering goods, that's causing lots of damage to the environment. There's also the issue of because of globalization, people are moving around the world a lot freer and easier than before, and that can lead to the spread of infectious diseases. Classic example of that is the coronavirus we're experiencing. So, what I want you to think about now is, what are the positive and negative effects of globalization for the consumer? Pause the video now and have a think about that for a few moments, and when you're ready, press play and continue on with the next video. So what I want you to think about now, so some of the positives and negatives for consumers. So for the consumers, they get to have more choice of products. They also get to have lower prices, and they can often get better quality products. However, the problem is, or the negatives, is that some employees get exploited. What do I mean by exploited? It means that they may be working in tough working conditions, or they may be forced to work long hours for very little pay. GM Foods stands for genetically modified foods. This is where they mass produce food and use chemicals to make them grow quicker. This may not be necessarily the healthiest type of food for us to be eating. There's the environmental damage, which we discussed before, and services can be impersonal. So, for example, if you're buying stuff off a website, for example, there's no real customer service there that you'd get if you walked into an individual local store. So, folks, in today's lesson, we learned about the reasons for globalization, the positive and negatives of globalization, and the positive and negatives for the consumer. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, ask below in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel for more wonderful videos like this. And of course, give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.